remind myself that my father just passed away and we weren't able to go to him in the last minutes. It's really hard. He passed away during COVID. How do I accept that? Now, again, that's for his situation. But when a person goes through a tremendous sorrow, they lose a parent, they go through a divorce, they lose their business, they feel so hurt. They love Hashem, they're always connected, but the pain is so real, it's so overbearing. How do we reconnect?
Very important question. Don't try to wrap your brain around it. Create space for mystery. Create space for the fact that I don't always have the ability to figure out why, what's the purpose, what's the reason, why would a good God want this? Don't reduce it to an intellectual mathematical equation. It gets us nowhere. People make that mistake of trying to make it fit into my brain. God is infinite. Infinity means that my brain cannot contain it. Some of these things in life, my brain could contain and appreciate because Hashem filters it through my brain. But sometimes we face realities in life like the one you just mentioned about the last moments of your father that are unfathomable. Why did he have to go through that? He probably went through life a lot. In his last moments, he couldn't be surrounded by people. And a lot of other horror stories that came from the corridors of hospitals and are coming out now and already came out during Pesach time, before Pesach, middle of Pesach, after Pesach. Probably many people you know, some people I know, and people who were saved the last moment because they actually didn't obey protocol. And all these questions are amazing questions. But I think we will not help ourselves or their souls by trying to wrap our brains around. Accept the fact that there are things in life that are completely mysterious. And when you are standing in the presence of such pain, you're facing the infinite mystery of Hashem that transcends my rational brain. And you know what? I don't have to figure it out. And I could say that. I can't figure this out. This does not make sense to me. Don't force it into your brain. Be humble and surrender to the vulnerability of the pain. Be raw, be real, be honest, be authentic. Just like Avraham Avinu screamed, "Hashofet chalaretz lo ya'aseh mishpat," and Moshe Rabbeinu screamed, "Lama harayos lama zeh," and Yirmiyah Hanavi screamed, "Madua derech rishayim tzlacha." And they were great ma'aminim. They were the greatest of the great. Moshe, Avraham, Yirmiyah, these are greatest of the great. But they experienced the pain of Klal Yisrael, and they expressed it to Hashem in very raw terms. They didn't say, "Oh, it's good, it's very good, I don't get it, I don't see it." And these are even those people. And in a way, when we try to minimize it and fit it into our brain, you know what we do? We deprive ourselves from a relationship with Hashem at that moment, because a relationship with Hashem means a relationship with reality. And if the reality is really painful and mysterious and unfathomable, it's in that pain where we're going to find truth, not by minimizing it and running away from it. And it's not a contradiction to Emunah. Emunah means Hashem has some plan, some meaning here, some purpose here, but you know what? For me, it really, really hurts. And I could remain in that place and know that that's part of the journey where God wanted me. I remember I was sitting Shiva for my father. Rabbi Asher, you remember my father?
Gershon, the Allgemeine.
The Allgemeine Journal. He was a character. He died at the age of 70. He was a diabetic. And he was a good man. He was an interesting person. And he was a great personality, a figure, fearless. He was a warrior for truth. An interesting man. He died. I was sitting Shiva with my siblings and my mother, Zol Zayin Gesund. And I'll never forget, somebody came to visit me, a Rav from Eretz Yisrael, a Choshev Rav. And he said to me words that were so meaningful. And I want to share them with you. He said to me, you know, when you lose a father, a ditch opens up in your heart. And he says, it's mamish like somebody digs a ditch in your dining room. And every time you walk from your living room to your kitchen through the dining room, you fall into the hole. Every single time, again and again and again. After a while, you realize there's a ditch. The ditch doesn't go away, but you just learn to walk around it. You see it and you walk around it. But once in a while, you forget and you fall in again. And he said, when your father passes away, or somebody very close, a hole opens up in your heart. And for the first 7 days and weeks and months, every time you walk by, boom, you're going to be there again. And he says, when time passes, the ditch doesn't go away. You just learn to walk around it. You watch it, you know it very well, but you walk around it, you don't fall in. But once in a while, you forget and you go right into that ditch. It was such an authentic expression of life. You know, people say, oh, time will pass, you'll forget. No, you move on. You learn to walk around it. Not every time do you fall into that. But that's why Avelis is for a year. It's not cruel. Halacha understood that these transitions are so traumatic and so powerful. To watch the earth swallow up a loved one is not an easy transition. You don't just say, let's just go back to life. Avelis is 12 months in halacha because it takes 12 months to recalibrate your brain and really adjust to a very, very new reality. And I remember my nephew, we were standing outside at night after, people come till 2 in the morning. One guy thought it was a Shalom Zocher, so he came 2 in the morning, he thought it was a Shalom Zocher. In any case, so we go outside and I tell my nephew, my brother's son, I say, it's the end of an era. And I was crying and he says, yes. And it's also the beginning of a new one. And it was very comforting words because the end of an era is very sad, but we have to choose if it's the beginning of a new one. And I would also mention one more thing. Everything is b'hashgacha. People were upset that their parents did not have levayas, normal levayas, hespedim, no shiva calls besides Zoom. People didn't say Kaddish. People couldn't daven. And people really feel bad. I got a lot of calls and a lot of emails from Avelim. They were grieving for the fact that they couldn't even grieve. There were people who sat shiva themselves, mamish themselves, if they didn't have bigger families. I have a close friend I grew up with. His father died. He lives in Toulouse, France. He couldn't even come to the funeral. He had to sit shiva without a minyan, without Kaddish, garnish. Before Pesach, he made a half a minyan illegal, whatever, just to say once Kaddish for his father. But it's important to remember something. Every neshama gets exactly what it needs in order to be able to be escorted to the next world. So sometimes, even if in this world, it doesn't look like there were people and the Levaya and Chevre Kadisha and Abeis Akvaris and Achashav Levaya. Every soul is accompanied by exactly those who have to be there to be able to take care and bring this neshama to where it has to be. My cousin Shlomo Aryeh Leib died. Usher's cousin, my cousin, Jacobson, Shlomo Aryeh Leib, Ben Rebbe Tzalel Jacobson, for whom this evening's Zoom Farbrengen is dedicated to. He was very ill for many years, and his mother called me in the middle of Shiva, my aunt, YY Jacobson, and she was crying. She took care of this kid because they declared him dead years ago. When he was 15, he had an aneurysm, they declared him dead. And she literally took him to every simcha and every bris and every pidyon aben. She infused him with life and gave him dignity. And she tells me, YY, she says, I couldn't even be there at his death. I couldn't be there at his death. And she couldn't forgive herself. It wasn't her fault, it was COVID-19. And I said something that just came from my heart. And it was so meaningful to her. I said, Feigi, you weren't there. But when his neshama went out, his father, who's already in Olam Emes, his father came to greet him. His Zayda, my Zayda, his father's father, Reb Simon Yakubashvili, who was exiled to the Gulag for 25 years for spreading Yiddishkeit in Stalin's cursed Soviet Union, and died a young man. He said, my Zayda came to greet him. My Baba came to greet him. What do you think? You were in there. But all these neshamas came from Olam Emes to greet this soul. Don't worry about your son. You took care of him here, and now let your husband take care of him there. And it was very meaningful for her because it means there's a picture that sometimes we don't see. So it's just important also to take that into consideration.